people want to be self-actualized. They want to really know themselves, but they think that they know themselves without ever doing the work to actually go in there and figure themselves out.
There's this saying, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am.
Hi, friends. It's Mitzi. I have a special opportunity for you. The Rich Thinking Conference. It's a day of mind-blowing potential. You know how they say you have to get into the right rooms with the right people? Well, I have spent the last year and a half learning how true this is. And that is why I wanted to create a room like this for you, to make it easy so you don't have to go searching too hard to find these kinds of places. So Renee V, my partner, and I have curated an event like those that we have loved attending as we have built our businesses. It's an event like the ones that have made a true difference in advancing our minds and our businesses forward. If you have been watching me grow, this is how I have done it. It's a secret trick. I have surrounded myself with people and environments that have empowered me and fueled my growth. And now I want to invite you to be a part of this world. But we have limited seats available. So don't wait to buy your ticket. Once we sell out, the room will not hold anymore. You'll get to be in the all-star energy of globally recognized speakers, Coach Michael Burt, Neil Bakshi, Amber Ibarra, Brian Galke, and L.A. Williams. Plus, I can hug you in person. So go to richthinking.org for more info and to grab your seats. Now, get your blessings on.
Welcome back to Blessings, my friends. I'm excited to bring you a super creative soul today. Before I knew anything about his work, I found myself having the kind of conversation that really inspires me, the deep kind, with a young man in Toronto, Canada. We spent about 8 hours together with some other friends, and we'd previously only met these people online, so it was very exciting. So today I have with me Vishal Joseph, also known as VJ. He was born in India, grew up in the United Arab Emirates, and is currently based in Toronto. He is a branding expert with a flair for the coolest digital assets that I've seen. So creative, it's so beyond me. And he's worked with leading brands like Coke and Pepsi, Starbucks, Hershey's, 3M, and more. He takes his coffee black, just like me. So I love that. He's a deep thinker and a spiritual being, also just like me. So I love that. And he believes that tomorrow can be today if you want it to be. So I can't wait to dig into some of my burning questions about life with VJ today. Welcome to the show, VJ.
Oh, I love that. I think that's the best intro. I might have to steal that for later and give it to people saying, say this, because this is dope. So thank you so much for that. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I pride myself on my introductions.
It's amazing. It's so spot on. Like I couldn't have written it better for sure. So that's awesome.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to start out with something deep. What is your tomorrow that you wish was today?
Freedom.
What do you mean?
Freedom in every sense. Like when we think about life, pretty much everything that we do essentially is for freedom. The freedom to buy the things we want, the freedom to eat what we want, the freedom to spend time however we want. And I feel like everything leads to that. So for me, that's how I approach everything that I'm doing. Like everything that I'm doing consciously is for that freedom, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And what I really love about that is it's making me think everyone wants freedom, but how many people are intentionally building their lives to achieve freedom? Not many of us.
Not many. And I don't blame people for that, honestly. It's because the definition of freedom is also very different for people, right?
True. What's your definition of freedom?
Honestly, I think financial freedom presides a lot of other aspects of my life when I think about it. So I'm from a middle class family, straight up regular middle class family. So for me, I've gone through experiences where my dad lost his job years back. And my dad's been through like health issues, which again was a financial constraint. then so many other situations when you look at it financially. And I feel like if the financial aspect of your life isn't taken care of, a lot of the other parts of your life feel the stress in different ways. So I know that there are different ways in which you can think about it, but for me, based on my specific experiences that I've had in life and the things that I want to do, that's number one for me at this point, at this stage in my life.
How old are you?
Turning 31 this year.
I knew you were going to say that. I had the number 31 in my mind and I didn't even know that you were 31. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I turned 30 last year, and it's someone said it. I forgot who said this. Like 20s is where you're figuring things out, 30s is where you're building and growing, and 40s is where you want to just enjoy it. I don't know. And then after that, life takes you on whatever it is. I think it was Casey Neistat, who's this YouTuber that I absolutely adore. I think he said this where when he was 42, I believe, he decided to pause on his daily video activity and hustle life and building his brand and doing all of that. And he said he just wants to chill for a while and actually spend time and enjoy everything that he's built over the last 10 years, which really resonated with me as I was turning 30. And I was thinking, okay, like that's an interesting take on it. Like I can relate to that.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. I would say I definitely spent my 40s enjoying things more. But now that I'm in my 50s, I'm starting over in that, wanting to build something new now. Because a lot of people, they're either going to give up after the 40s and move into the 50s. Okay, I'm in the late stages now. Or they're going to think, wait a minute, there's an opportunity for me to do something entirely different now and have a whole different life.
What do you feel like was missing where in your 50s you thought you want to do something like this? What was the missing thing for you? I'm curious.
Mm, I think when you get it in your 50s, it's very common to question your past and your path that you've chosen and to wonder about what life might have been like if you had done something differently. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was about for me. I think also because I have children and they're all grown now, it
Mm-hmm.
puts you back into a place where you're confronted with your identity later in life because you're alone again. And for me, I was divorced in the process of my life. And so I am really alone. I do have a partner, but I'm alone, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we all are really at the essence of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be confronted with that idea and to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be confronted with questions that are coming up for you for the first time, maybe in decades. Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose? Big questions like that. That I think that's what happens. That I know that's what happened to me. So what was missing? I don't think there was necessarily anything missing, but it's just a matter of what would I like to see there now that isn't there.
When you said, "Who am I?" it triggered a thing for me. Basically, so I recently worked on, I just made this video that I haven't posted yet. And that video is basically, it talks about how when you go to a party, for example, or when you go for any gathering, the question people ask, so they say, okay, so what do you do? Right. And I don't know what it is about the way in which we're conditioned with like school and then work life and all of that. But we almost immediately respond with what we do for a living, and that sort of becomes the who am I answer that we commonly go to, right? Which I fucking hate.
Me
Which for
too.
me is like, why do we allow ourselves to define ourselves by what we do for a living, like the 9 to 5? So I say the 9 to 5 because I think there is deeper definition that's available with your 5 to 9, which is essentially everything that you do outside of your 9 to 5 that has meaning to you and that has purpose to you. I've been on this pursuit. So when you said who am I, I've been thinking about that myself. And this is the closest that I got to where your 5 to 9 are the things that you do outside of your 9 to 5 essentially has greater potential in terms of truly defining who you are and giving your life like more meaning. Like that was something that
Exactly.
yeah, that was something that came to me like recently, and I thought it was interesting. But it's funny how not many people share that same perspective.
I think they want to. People want to be self actualized. They want to really know themselves, but they think that they know themselves without ever doing the work to actually go in there and figure themselves out.
There's this saying, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think
Think
I am.
I am.
Right? That's so
So
true, right?
true. It's
Like people,
so true. So
it's,
true. That whole thing you were saying about the question, that is really one of my big pet peeves. That whole question, what do you do? And that's why I'm so big into asking big questions, especially if I'm going to a party or something. I always have a list of things in my head that I can use to have conversations with people that are more meaningful. It seems so inauthentic to start out with a judgment like, okay, tell me what you do, and then I can judge you. I can
but,
evaluate whether that's good or not.
but I've given up on trying to not fix, but trying to find a better answer, because I feel like what I do for a living is the answer that the other person's looking for, and that's good enough. If they actually truly want to understand what do I do and what my interests are, that's a deeper conversation reserved for those who actually want to have that deeper conversation, right? And
Right.
that's how I think about it. I don't know, I've just become so black and white when it comes to people, when it comes to conversations, and when it comes to investing time into those conversations. So unless someone's actually seriously interested, I'm just like, yo, I'm just going to give you the answer that I know you're looking for so that you have peace of mind with the question that was asked. But if you actually want to go deeper, let's talk about it. And that's actually the conversation I want to have.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting because even though we spent so much time together talking, and
Mhm.
I knew a little bit about what kind of job you do, but I didn't know anything about your work until I started to look at your website to prepare for this interview. So I thought that was interesting because we talked about things that were way beyond what a
Mhm.
person does. We got very deep in our whole conversation with that group that day. And that was so intense. Like it was so much more interesting.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Whenever people ask me, I try not to mention the brand I work for as much as possible to just steer clear. But yeah, apart from that, no, I totally get what you're saying.
Yes.
100%.
Oh my gosh. All right. One of the things I find the most interesting about you is that you have lived all over the world essentially in a lot of different places. And I think you've also traveled to some different places. So you have a very global perspective of the world. And most of us stay where we're planted. Your parents start somewhere and then you end up staying there for a period of time. You have traveled and you have lived and actually picked up your roots and moved them. And most
Hmm.
recently, you did that by moving to Canada. And
Hmm.
so, what do you think it is about you that gives you that wanderlust or that fearlessness to actually go and start a new life somewhere else?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'd call myself fearless because I fear. And I think if you don't fear things, it's not the best, because I do fear change. I do fear new environments. I do fear being alone. But what I've learned from moving around so much is that every place is as good as the people that you have around you, and saying yes to more gives you an opportunity to find happiness in ways that you would never be able to plan or look forward to. Like this has been my biggest learning moving around so much. And I think a lot of that also comes from the different type of people I've been fortunate enough to meet and befriend and just have conversations with, to understand how they think about stuff. And there's always something to learn from like different cultures. And in India itself, there are, I don't know how many languages there are like shit tons. And when I was in university, I picked up two extra languages. And that was because I lived with people who spoke those languages. And so it's very interesting how within India itself, between the north, the middle, and the south, the west and the east, culture differs so much. Language differs, and the way in which people think about things is so different. So being able to adapt, I think, really gave me more confidence that no matter you put me in a room with anyone, and I will be able to empathize with them and the way in which they think about stuff. And so that conversation will flow. Now, if their values are different, that's a whole different story. If the values don't align, like obviously there's no vibe and I wouldn't really take it further. And that's the nature of relationships. But I think having that exposure really, and I'm so grateful to my parents for that, because they were the ones who, my dad moved to the Middle East, I think like late 80s, where there was this big surge of immigrants from India moving to the Middle East, Oman, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, where there was opportunity. So my dad was bold enough at that point to to make that decision and make that choice, which allowed me to have the luxury of growing up in the UAE. And that by itself was like, there was a lot to learn there, especially when you're an immigrant. And I got bullied by Arab kids and stuff when I was a kid because I didn't speak the language. And when you go to the park to like play and stuff, you're bound to interact with them. So all of that, I feel like these micro moments of life sort of shape you as an individual and ultimately lead to who you are in the now. So that's, I think it's that exposure to different types of people that's helped me empathize better and relate, if that makes sense.
It
So that was
absolutely
a
makes
long
sense.
answer.
No, it makes so much sense because I am I'm an American, and I think that it's very common for Americans to not experience a lot of other cultures in their home land.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of immigration, obviously, but to experience a culture in its place is
Mhm.
a completely different experience. And we just don't have that. And I love what you said about the idea that India, because we think of people who are from India as just being people who are from India. We don't realize India is enormous and
Mhm.
it has all of that different culture within that country, the same as the United States does. Just because I'm an American, if you went to a different state, I'm in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, you could go to Oklahoma and you'd meet someone who had an entirely different way of
Mhm.
life from mine.
I have this. So, even though, yes, where you are from can influence the way in which you think about it, I still think it's a very fundamental behavioral and personality based thing in terms of how you approach people and the way in which you evolve. Because I know people who have moved across borders and moved to different countries, but they still have the same exact approach that they did from day zero. Like it's like you would move to another country, but you would surround yourself with the exact same type of people that you did before, culturally speaking. And so you don't gain anything new in terms of evolving, right? You
Mhm.
stay the same. So I don't think it's just about where you're from. I also think it's about the mindset that you have in terms of how you want to live your life and how you want to approach evolution for yourself.
Mm. Mhm. Your own personal growth,
Yeah,
if you
like a
want to
lot of,
branch out or not.
there's this funny thing where when Indians move to another country, let's say Canada, right? So when people move to Canada, there are Indians who say, "Oh, so you've got, so now you don't want to hang out with Indians anymore. You just want to hang out with Canadians because you're Canadian now." And that's not what I'm referring to. I know there are people who might do that based on a response of ego where you want to interact with like another culture and that's just purely out of interest and wanting to associate with that group. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about purely the curiosity that you have to expose yourself to another culture and learn from that while still staying true to your roots and staying honest to yourself. That's a there's a distinction there that a lot of people don't quite get, and that comes from what you said about self growth and trying to figure your own shit out, right? If you don't do that, then you will the way you think about it will not change or will not improve. At least that's how I look at it.
Mhm. I love that. That's a really good point. You don't have to abandon your roots to branch out like a tree. As a metaphor,
You
right?
shouldn't. Like I think wherever you come from, that's so important to keep that close. Like that's who you are. That's where you came from. That's the starting of your story, right? That's chapter one. Would you just
Yeah.
rip that out? Fuck no, I don't think so. That makes no sense. Sorry, I should
Right.
have asked you. Is it okay if I swear? Okay, cool. Shit.
Swear away.
Okay, okay, cool. Sorry,
Yes.
it's just
No.
yeah, okay, cool. But yeah,
No, it's fine.
like that's the thing. Like you wouldn't rip out chapter one and just give everyone the rest of the book, right? You want to know
That's
where
right.
that's yeah.
It would be like tearing a chapter out of your own book. So let's go back to chapter 1 of your book. You were born in India. So what part of India and what was your life like as a small child?
So I'm from Kerala, which is this state down south, and I was born in Kerala, but in I think a year or two, I moved to the UAE. So for a very brief period, like daycare and stuff was in Kerala, where I was with my grandmom, and my mom was studying at that point. So I met her on the weekends. This was when I was a baby, like year
Mhm.
one, year two. Then I moved to Abu Dhabi in the UAE, and I was there for about, I want to say, 3 4 years. My memory is so trash, but yeah, 3 4 years in Abu Dhabi, and then after that, I moved to Sharjah, which is another emirate in the UAE, and I was there till age 17. So yeah, pretty much all of my life was in the UAE, but after that, I spent about 10 years in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you
So
moved to the UAE, how long did it take you to assimilate to the culture and learn language and things?
no, so it was everything that I knew. All I knew was the UAE because I like
Oh,
my
okay.
you get it, like as a kid, like when you grow up, everything that you remember for me was the UAE.
Okay. I thought you
India
said
was
before
just
you go
glimpses.
okay. I thought you referenced that you didn't speak the same language as the Arab kids that bullied you.
Yeah. So in the UAE, I went to an Indian school where all the kids were pretty much Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh is like the general mix. But when you live there and you want to go play basketball in the park that's nearby, you interact with other kids from other nationalities who go to different schools. Now, in the UAE, you don't need to be able to speak Arabic to survive because the majority of the population, they're immigrants. So chances are everyone speaks your language, but English is what works. It works. So for me, growing up, it was outside of school hours where when I spent time outside as a kid hanging out, that you have these moments where you interact with kids from other nationalities and you have these experiences. Yeah.
Can you tell us about an experience from when you were a child that sticks in your mind?
Uh, okay, I'll say one good experience and I'll say one bad experience and then good experience. Bad experience I was getting out of having a tutor was a very normal thing to get help with your classes and stuff. So I remember coming out of this tuition thing and I got mugged by a couple of kids from, I don't even know which country they were from. They were not Indian for sure. And they just asked me for how much money do I have, and they just took my money and they went out. So that's like a memory for me where I felt extremely helpless and like I just absolutely hated it. Like I've been bullied as well when I was in school. I remember as well. There was this dude who said something about my family, and I was just pissed off, and I went all crazy. I went crazy on him. So I remember those were like the bad experiences that I remember as a kid, like being bullied a couple of times. But the good experiences was like I remember there was this I think Lebanese kid who I was friends with. I think Ali was his name, and this was my phase where I loved to BMX, have my bike and ride around. And so he had a BMX as well, and so we used to meet up and we used to hang out together and stuff. So while the cultural differences sometimes were challenging, I definitely did have a few positive experiences as well. So yeah.
That's great. It's always nice to focus on the positive experiences.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So it's funny, when I was in second grade, my we had a public speaking thing in class. It was like an activity. I don't remember what it was, but the exercise was that we had to write a speech and we had to present in front of the class. And the topic was, what do I want to be when I grow up? I said I want to be an engineer. And funnily enough, it was my dad who wrote the speech for me. And as life turns out, I turned out to be an engineer, but I never worked a day as an engineer because I would have made a shitty engineer because I passed my engineering with extremely great difficulty. So much so that my mom and dad didn't believe that I actually did graduate. And they said, we want to see the degree and we're coming for the graduation. And I was like, okay, because I got into a lot of trouble when I was in university. So fair enough for them to say that. But yeah, being an engineer was what I said at that point. I don't think I said anything. I think there was a phase where I said I want to be a pilot, but that was like a totally random thing, not based in anything, or not deeply rooted in a keen interest or anything of that. So it was just like a random thing. I think I never really spent much time thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just did the things that interested me and was just a regular kid. But yeah.
And you fell into a really creative career. You're a marketing
Yeah.
strategist and you also do these amazing designs. So, where did all that creativity come from?
Okay, so I'll tell you what I do for a living. So
Okay.
I'm an account manager at Snapchat, and my job is essentially working with CPG brands, which is consumer packaged goods. So your Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Hershey's, Nestle, whatever, all of the food and drink brands that are there, with their advertising efforts on Snapchat as a platform. So that involves understanding how brands can run ads and run successful campaigns. And along with that, giving them strategies for augmented reality, which is like these filters that you have on Snapchat. It's not a extremely creative role. It's more analytical in terms of how they spend money and things like that. There is a creative side to it, but what with regard to my the visuals and the graphics and everything that I do is my 5 to 9, which is
Mhm.
creating content and talking to people about their personal brand and trying to help empower people to position themselves in a better way and open themselves up to more opportunities. Now, that is completely different from what I do for a living. So, all of that creative side of things, it's the end result of me learning things over a very long period of time. Small things that interested me, I just started learning them one at a time and executing them one at a time. And all of that knowledge put together gave me the skills to position myself in the way that I wanted to.
So, which gives you more freedom, the 9 to 5 or the 5 to 9?
Oh, the 5 to 9 for sure, because it's just me, right? But I am grateful for the 9 to 5, no doubt. I think of
Yeah.
it as my top sponsor.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
I love that. Was there an experience in your life at any point that changed your perspective on life totally?
So when I was a kid, this is a conversation I had with my dad. So I remember we were in the car and we were driving, and I was just in the back seat, just like in between. And my dad randomly asked me this question where he was like, "How many friends do you have?" And I said, this was when Facebook was a thing. So I remember having, I think, 500 friends on Facebook. And so I told him, I have 500 friends. My dad was like, "What? Do you have 500 friends?" I was like, "Yeah, I have 500 friends, and they're all on Facebook as well." And my dad was like, "Okay, so do you have 500 friends or do you know 500 people?" And then that sort of clicked for me. And it's something that I took forward in terms of relationships and the people that you have in your life. You could know thousands of people, but like, how many true friends do you actually have? And having moved around so much and I've been in such stupid situations. I once got, I got kicked out from a house that I was living in because I was partying with a couple of friends. And long story short, when you go through challenging situations, it's beautiful because it provides an opportunity for you to know who your true friends are and who's going to be there for you when shit goes down, basically. And that goes hand in hand with my dad, with what my dad said. And so for me, like when I think about things that have really influenced the way in which I approach things now, relationships and the time that I invest with the people who are part of my life is super critical. Like I would do anything for people I actually care about. And that's just how I am and how I approach it. But my therapist said not everything's black and white. There is gray. I'm still looking for that. I haven't found that. I still think it's black and white. And that's just how I look at relationships, if that makes sense.
Ah, wow. So you're looking for the gray. Most of us feel trapped in the gray, I think. Maybe I'm wrong about most of us, but I feel trapped in the gray. Speak for
I
myself.
I think the thing is I'm too extreme. Like it's either like I love somebody and I will do anything for them, and it's like crazy investment there, or else it's you're dead to me. No, not investing time into this. I'm sorry. Whatever you need help, cool. I'll help you with whatever you need, but I'm not investing my time with you right now because there's very limited time. So who I spend that time with is so important, right? Might as well
Mhm.
invest all of my energy into people who actually matter rather than divide that time so much, and it's not qualitative.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I could be more like that because I'm super sensitive. And so I have a really hard time compartmentalizing life that way, like putting people into a category of, I don't need you in my life anymore. I have a very difficult time with that.
Last year, I went through a very tough personal relationship with a friend situation where someone who I knew for a very long time and who I was extremely close to, I had to make the tough decision to just end that completely. And it was like, it was ugly. It was actually, it was ugly because the other person was just like going crazy. But after almost 10 months, that person got back to me and they were a lot more understanding of why I made that decision. And so there is space now, and there is an understanding. So the relationship's not dead entirely, but priorities have changed. And if you're respectful about that, I feel like you can have a lot more relationships, and you can actually have control over where you invest your time and your energy and your passion.
Mm.
And that's how I feel like that works a lot better now. But it was challenging for me for sure. And I think I get that. I love people and I love being around people, but not at the cost of the things that I want to do and the kind of life I want to lead.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I had a situation that was similar, and I knew that this friendship was no longer aligned and our priorities were completely different. But I always took the stance that, isn't it great we can be friends in spite of our differences? But in my situation, it just completely fell apart more because the other person didn't feel aligned as well. And so
Hmm.
it was very difficult to let go of something, even though I knew it wasn't serving me or this other person anymore at all. But it's a big change because you have a lot of your social life wrapped up in these close friendships, and it can be really hard.
I think there are three types of relationships that you can have: people who energize you, people who drain you, or people who you can share your energy with, where there's an equal, it does not have to be equal, but there's an exchange, right? People who drain you, why do we even have people like that in our lives, right? That's how I think about it. Like, you don't need people who drain you, because there's nothing positive that's there in that experience. You can be there for someone and help someone out, but if that drains you, I don't, that makes no sense to me. And people who give you energy and you are the one who's draining them, I don't think that's a fair exchange either, right? There should be something that you are able to contribute in terms of a relationship so that you both mutually are able to grow, which is the third type, which is where you exchange energy and every interaction is wonderful. And yes, there are challenges to every type of relationship for sure. And that's just, as adults, you deal with that and try to work things out, right? But end of the day, there always is a net, I feel, when it comes to this whole thing. The closer you are to having an equal exchange, I feel like that's good. And that's where like
Yeah.
joy lies, I feel.
And that could be, maybe you could live almost in the 80-20 rule with that, because say you could say 80% of the people in my life are going to be a harmony in an
Hmm.
energetic exchange. And maybe there are 20% that are people you have to keep around because they're your family members or you
Hmm.
work with them or something, because it isn't possible. It would be great if we could always have just the ideal group of people surrounding us, the ideal village, but we have to learn how to deal with people who are troubling.
Family, I love my immediate family, mom, dad, sister. Yeah, I'd die for them. But extended relatives and all of that, I don't know. Like, helping someone, cool. Like, I get that. But allowing someone to drain you, I don't know, whoever it is, like, I'm done with that in
Yeah.
my life. I don't know. Just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
I've trained myself to be this way, I think, over the years, and no regrets as of now, at least.
Okay. I like that. And I would like to bring more of that into my own life. But I feel like you have to be the kind of person who can detach more easily. And I find that hard for me, but I
I'm not
admire
the
you.
I'm not the kind who can detach easily. Don't get me wrong. And I also don't mean be a rude person or be arrogant or be always be kind for
Yeah.
sure. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
That goes, I assume that goes without saying in terms of approaching all of these things. But I think there still should be a priority set in terms of taking care of yourself. Because if you don't, then no one's going to come and take care of you. Like that's you're delusional. If you know, if someone thinks that someone else is gonna come and take care of your shit, like no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Like you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed, you know?
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's draining, as you said. It's definitely better to prioritize your own needs so that you can be the best version of yourself. I love that.
And in that process, you can help more people as well. So that's
That's
why
right.
ultimately everything should point to what it is that you want to do or what brings you joy. I love what's said in the Ikigai book of being able to help someone finding joy with what you do, being able to make money, and like that intersection of all of those things is key. What the world needs. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
that's a
that's
great exercise to do. I've done that. What the world needs, you make these 4 circles and they all intersect. And you have what the world needs, what you're good at. What are the other ones?
what you're
What
good at, what the world needs, what brings you joy, and what was the fourth one? God, I gotta check. I don't remember what the fourth one was. It's
okay,
funny. I
I
have
take
the.
that
Oh
part
wait,
out of it.
no, I think I have the. Just give me one second.
I actually have mine that I made.
What you love. So it's
Oh,
what you
what you
love,
love.
what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. It's funny.
Yes,
I keep
the
it here.
Ikigai. Yeah, it's a good one to keep around. I love that exercise. All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk about something personal.
Okay.
What is the dating world like for someone in their
Oh
30s?
shit. Oh shit. Oh my
I went there.
god. This topic is it's so funny. What I have on YouTube open right now, not even making it up, is a video by Tim Ferriss where it's an extremely old video that he reposted where it's like I hired a pickup artist to help me find a girlfriend. And it's an experiment that he does where he takes like different approaches, the online dating world, like cold meeting someone like on the street and trying to spark a conversation, and then matchmaking. So I'm deep in this world where I've gone for blind dates, I've gone for speed dating, I've tried the dating apps. I don't know, I'm done with it. If I'm being honest, like I'm slowly accepting that if it has to happen, it'll happen, and I don't want to force it because there's this thing. It's like everyone's got an opinion about like how it can be, and
Mhm.
everyone's oh, you have to be, you have to, put yourself out there and do things to be able to find the person that you want to be with. On the flip side, people say don't be thinking about it and don't be obsessed about it because if you keep thinking about it, you won't find the person. So everyone just shut up and like universe, please do your thing. That's where I'm at because I don't think there's an answer to it apart from just saying yes to opportunities that come your way
Mhm.
and just being true to yourself. At least this is what I believe right now. I could
Mhm.
be wrong. Like who knows? Life is figuring this shit out, right?
Right.
So I'm hoping that if I stay consistent with being true to myself and working on the things I'm passionate about, somewhere along that journey, I think I'd find someone, and that's how I think about dating right now. But
Mhm.
dating is a nightmare. My mom and dad have also been doing this whole matchmaking thing where they're trying to set me up with people for an arranged marriage situation. But my parents are like damn chill and they're very nice. They said this is just an option for you to meet more people. Think of it that way. And if it works out, if it doesn't work out, cool. Like you move on and continue with your stuff. Like whatever it is that so they respect that and that's amazing. Like I know parents who are like, no, you gotta get married. If you don't, you're getting left behind and stuff. My dad was super clear about it. He said there's like a window in life generally that people choose to do these things, and that window is there for you right now. It's up to you how you want to deal with it, but it's your decision that you have to live with for the rest of your life. and these are the options that you have. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. But I am not going to be with someone that I don't think is my life partner just out of the insecurity of being by myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that's very wise. You're very reasonable when you talk about that. I don't
God,
think
I hope
there's
I am.
Would you see yourself being in an arranged marriage?
Why not? If it's if a friend introduced you to someone, I don't see it as any different than that. There's this whole stigma associated with being in an arranged marriage, but you hear stories about people who met through an arranged marriage and they're living happy lives.
Yeah.
You've heard stories of people who fell in love, had the most romantic wedding ever, and then get divorced. So it's like there is no rule to this, right? That's how I think about it. There is no rule to where you find your person if you believe in the concept of your person.
Yeah.
But like you just power through life being yourself and being trying to stay as happy as possible. And someone will want to share in that experience, is what I believe. I could be just crazy, like thinking this way, but this is how I think about it right now, at least.
No, you're absolutely right. That's when you do meet the person, when you are not expecting it and when you're just being true to yourself. That's a beautiful way of looking at it because you want somebody who's aligned with you. You want somebody who's going to share in the things that you are already enjoying.
And I get that it's never going to be a 100% match. Again, there are no rules. People say opposites
Mhm.
attract, but oh, you need a partner who's like you so you can do shared things that you both enjoy. So there are no rules to it. And I get that. And I think it's not going to be perfect. I think it's just another thing to experience on in life, right?
Do you think it's more of an energetic connection or is it based on certain criteria?
Interesting question. So a lot of my friends recently got married and like their friends got married. And so there are a lot of conversations around what a I keep saying marriage because that's just how my brain thinks about like a relationship. Obviously, whatever, open relationship, whatever it is that people want to have, that's totally fine. But when I have these conversations with people, like I realize there are a few things that could be criteria based. For example, if you want to have kids but your partner does not,
Mhm.
how would that conversation end? You know? Or is it something that you constantly are unhappy about together? There has to be some conclusion or there should be some compromise or there should be some understanding when it comes to something like that. So I
Yeah.
think similar to that, there might be things that could be classified as criteria. But I think end of the day, it does come down to energy and like how you feel with that other person, because how you feel about being with someone can help you make decisions and find compromise when needed, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's a mix of both. I love that question actually because it's see that's the gray. It's not
There you go. You found it.
that's the gray. I found it.
I love that. Would you consider a relationship with someone who is not Indian?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's not. It's so funny. This is gonna sound crazy. I'm gonna sound like a crazy person when I say this, but I'm just gonna say it. I've been very interested in ASL or American Sign Language.
Mm.
And yesterday or day before, I just had this thought where I was like, what if the person who I really like can't speak? And I was just thinking about what sort of relationship would that be like and how would two individuals get together with a situation like that? And a part of me was thinking I would not really care if that was the case, even because there are so many other things that you would look for in a partner in terms of the life that you want to live. Yeah, so I don't really have as many expectations of where they're from and if they have disabilities or whatever challenges that they have. But I think values and just being a kind, good person
Mhm.
is yeah, it's a deal breaker. That has to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a beautiful answer. What an interesting thing that you are thinking about things like that. That's very attractive, I think, and I think there you will find a person who will appreciate that for sure. Because I think that's pretty rare, that quality. Someone who thinks that deeply.
I don't know. I just That's nice to hear.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't come
Yeah.
across a lot of, actually, my daughter thinks that way and she's 26. No. Just
Oh my
kidding. Sorry,
God.
Kira. Interesting. All right. So I want to ask you about, because I know that you're also a very spiritual kind of person, just the way that you think about life, maybe not like in a religion kind of way, but in a
Mm,
spirituality
mhm,
kind of way. And
mhm.
so how do you think that creativity and spirituality intertwine?
That's an interesting question. How do you think creativity and spirituality intertwine? That is, I'm thinking of how to frame what's in my head. When I think about creativity, I think it's freedom. Like I said, I think it's freedom of allowing yourself to express your thoughts, emotions, values in ways that embody who you are as a person. Okay. So that's how I think about creativity. Freedom of expression, true freedom, where you allow yourself to express in a way that is true to yourself. When I think about spirituality, not in the religious sense, but I think it's self awareness, acceptance, and curiosity. Because if you're not curious, you wouldn't be open to exploring what spirituality is by this definition. So, curiosity is super important, and self awareness is probably the most helpful thing to evolve, right? So if
Yes.
these things like intertwine, imagine the sort of freedom that you would give yourself to express, where you're free from the spiritual definition of ego, where the things that you like, the things you dislike, and all of these barriers that you set for yourself, which restricts your true expression of how you look at life, right? So that's where, so if you actually do explore the spiritual side of life and being a human being, I feel like you might actually find out things about yourself and explore new ways to be creative that you
Mm.
would never be able to allow yourself to be if you had not explored the creative side, the spiritual side of things. God, I hope whoever's listening to this now is not confused. Probably have to rewind, but I don't know. Does that make
No.
sense? Like, what do you think?
Yes, that makes total sense. That was beautiful. And I would say if there's an intersection of creativity and spirituality, based on what you said, it's the self.
Mm. Yeah, that's because you completely deconstruct your ego and you're just like just being, right? But
Mhm.
that comes through a lot of, what do you say, work. I'm
Work.
so grateful to like two friends who I met in 2018. They took me on this spiritual experience which helped me see life very differently. And they broke down my ego. It was like this whole crazy experience, but which I don't think I should share the details of. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, but I think the outcome of that was I realized that I was a super loud, noisy individual that was not able to allow others to understand what I actually meant or the way in which I wanted to show up. So
Mm.
just that awareness helped me be more present, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
God, I sound like some Wuju Mama crazy
I love that. No,
person.
that's my
I don't
jam.
know.
That's totally my jam. I love it so much. It's so great. No, this has been so great. I could go on, we could go on for hours because this is so deep. I love it. But I
Yeah,
have to
I
ask.
have time. I'm not restricted. So yeah, it's all good.
No, that's okay. I'm going to ask you my final question that I ask everyone, which is what are the biggest lessons that you think you've learned in life?
Oh, okay. Like how many do you want? I'm
Uh,
just gonna I'm just gonna say
the top ones that pop into your mind.
okay. So there's one I live and die by this. If someone tells you that something's not possible, it means that they think it's not possible based on their experiences. Don't take that as is and explore the outcome based on your own research, based on your own tests, based on your own analysis of the situation. I'm so fucking fed up of people trying to give advice that is solely based on their experience and does not give the other person the freedom to explore. Like,
Mm,
I understand being sharing your experience or your expertise based on what you think works or what worked for you, but that's not necessarily the case for the other individual, right? I feel like that caveat should always be mentioned, which is in 99% of situations, it's not. When I wanted to move to Canada, almost every consultant that I spoke to said, you will not be able to go to North America to get into a university of my choice to do my master's. They said it's not possible. You have to look at colleges or like lower tiered like educational institutions, or else you got to try other countries like Ireland, Spain. They gave me like so many other options, but I wanted to move to North America and experience that for myself. They said it's not happening. The reason, so I said that I my engineering, it was a disaster. I failed almost 35 courses that I had. So on my transcripts, I've got like almost 28 to 35 Fs because I failed them all. Yeah, I was a terrible engineering student. It's a miracle I graduated, but I graduated with a 7 point GPA, which is like good enough, 7.1, whatever it is. Don't care. But the point being, my educational record is not the best. So on paper, when someone looks at that and they're trying to make the analysis of can this individual apply for a university, like a good university, to get into a prestigious program, they outright would say no. But I fucking nailed it. I got into the best business school possible in Canada, specifically for marketing. And I managed to crack that because it's not just about your transcripts, it's actually about the story and the application that you're able to put forward that's convincing the other person on the other end to give you a shot. That's what it
mm,
actually is. But consultants don't tell you that. They look at mass numbers, right? So they have preset answers that work well for the general audience, but that's not what that's not, and this is a life changing decision. And I've experienced this at multiple points in my life when it comes to job, career, relationships, experiences, where people say that something's not possible or don't do that for whatever reason, but they were wrong. So I
mm,
always try to tell people or whoever that I interact with, do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Anything that anyone says is not possible, it's something that they think is not possible based on their knowledge and experience. You have to figure out whether it's possible for you or not based on the research you do and the conviction that you have, which can only come from work. So
mm.
yeah.
Oh, that is powerful. Very good. I love that. And what about your blessings? What are you most grateful for?
Oh, being alive. So I have this thing whenever I put in a journal entry, I have this section which is grateful for.
Mm,
And I write down, this is what I write down: being alive, friends and family, I write down their names and whoever comes to mind. And then I also write having all my senses and having all my limbs. It's like a weird thing, but I actually write this down because the idea of not having any of them is so life changing that we don't really spend any time looking into it. And one of my clients, he actually, when he was in university, he worked on a 3D printed prosthetic product, which when working with him is when I was like, damn, this is actually a challenging situation for people who are in this position. Everybody knows that it's a challenging situation, but have you actually spent time looking into it and trying to understand what the specific challenges are? Not really. And his product is basically something that you can put your residual limb on while you're in the shower, because apparently the shower is one of the most challenging situations for someone who's lost a limb for whatever
mm,
reason. So it's a very niche specific problem, but unless you actually work with someone or you hear about it, you wouldn't really think about it on a day-to-day basis, right? So when you look at the things that you have to be grateful for that we often take granted, it's always nice once in a while, at least. You don't have to do it every single day, but at least once in a while when you journal and when you're trying to be mindful, senses and limbs.
Mm.
It's just a super random thing, but yeah.
I just love the way you think. Your thought process, you're going to invent something amazing someday. The way that
I
you think
think
about things is just incredible.
I don't know. I hope, yeah, I hope someday that the way I think about things reaches a lot more people and inspires them in some way, in some small way. Like, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Because if we're not really spreading the way in which we think about stuff, we're not really empowering our individuality and sharing if you're religious, the gifts that God has given you, right? So, what exactly is the purpose of life if you aren't really adding value and making life better for you and those around you? That's how I think about it. So, I hope that it reaches more people someday.
That's
This will be
really
fun to look
beautiful.
back. This will be fun to look back to in 5 years' time.
This is such a great talk. I have one last question for you. When are you going to see the Taj Mahal?
Oh God, I don't know. It's so funny. I lived in India for so many years and I haven't really seen anything. There's so much more. Hopefully, in the next few years to come, I want to travel more and see more. So, yeah, God, I have to see the Taj Mahal. Can't believe it.
I read that was one of your dreams.
Yeah,
I hope you get to see it soon.
I
Thank you,
hope so too.
BJ. This has just been such a great conversation. I love talking to you.
This was awesome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for having me. Thank you
you're
so much.
so welcome.